This is part 2 of the North Central Texas Regional ITS Architecture Update Usage Seminar, Project Consistency with the Architecture. This is the second of 3 parts. The first part covered using the architecture. The third part covered architecture maintenance. The agenda is to cover the importance of architecture consistency, to look at the architecture consistency statement, and to discuss how to use the North Central Texas ITS architecture in completing a project consistency statement. The objectives are to discuss the importance of architecture consistency for your project and the region, to discuss how a project can be and should be consistent with the architecture, and to display how to use the architecture to help complete the architecture consistency statement that has been developed by North Central Texas Council of Government. The North Central Texas Regional ITS Architecture Consistency ensures your project is documented as part of the region's planning processes. It ensures your project will be interoperable with existing and future systems. It ensures you are utilizing existing resources and are planning for future resources. And it reduces redundancy in deployments by making all stakeholders aware of existing regional capabilities and ensuring that projects will be interoperable. The North Central Texas Council of Government has developed a ITS Architecture Consistency Statement that stakeholders can complete for their ITS projects. It helps them evaluate the consistency of their project, and it lets North Central Texas Council of Governments know that your project is consistent with the ITS architecture. The form can be completed online at the North Central Texas Council of Government website. Before funding agreements with TxDOT are developed, the proposing agency must demonstrate project consistency with the North Central Texas Regional ITS architecture. The ITS Architecture Consistency Statement helps stakeholders meet this requirement. The ITS Architecture Consistency Statement allows the North Central Texas Council of Government and TxDOT to verify ITS is being deployed consistent with the architecture. It allows stakeholders to verify their projects are consistent with the architecture and to identify situations where it may not be consistent. And it allows the stakeholders an NCTCOG to identify instances where the architecture may need to be modified to reflect project plans. A resource that stakeholders can use in completing the Architecture Consistency Statement is the North Central Texas Regional ITS Architecture website, which can be found on the North Central Texas Council of Governments ITS website. The rest of this Part 2 focuses on completing the consistency statement using the architecture website as an aid in completing it. In this demonstration, a fictitious agency will be used to complete an architecture consistency statement using the North Central Texas Regional ITS Architecture website as a guide and for information to complete the form. The architecture consistency statement asks users to complete a contact sheet that informs North Central Texas Council of Governments who is completing the form for which agency and how it is relevant to the TIP and CSJ. For this particular project, it is a small town transit signal priority project, meaning a project where buses can request extended or early green lights in order to improve their schedule adherence. The project is currently in design. The project consistency, architecture consistency form asks for stakeholders. Stakeholders can be found on the ITS architecture website. Under projects, this project falls within the local transit improvements. A list of stakeholders is provided for that project. In this case, it's the local traffic management agencies and local transit management providers. This would be small town transit and small town public works, who are part of these groups. The form is completed to show that small town transit will lead the project, while small town public works will support the project. The next question on the consistency statement is system elements. It asks for the stakeholder filling out the statement to list the types of ITS equipment developed or purchased for this project. In this case, once again, under the local transit improvement projects, an inventory is listed. For this particular project, local roadway devices, which would be traffic signals for small town, and local transit vehicles, which would be the small town buses, are the inventory items. It should be noted that not all inventory needs to be included in your project. Only those elements of the inventory on the ITS architecture website that are relevant to your particular project. The form is completed to show that the equipment that will be purchased for this project is the TSP equipment installed on existing small town transit vehicles and the TSP detection and TSP capable firmware installed at existing small town public works signals. TSP means transit signal priority. The architecture statement next asks for list the type of existing ITS equipment that will interface and exchange data with new equipment in this project, and briefly describe the functions that this project will perform. The functions, again, may be found on the ITS architecture website. Under the project, a list of services are provided. In this case, the service Advanced Public Transportation Systems 09, APTS 09, Transit Signal Priority, is the service that this system will be providing. The user has completed the next section of the architecture consistency statement by listing the existing ITS equipment that will interface and exchange data with new equipment in this project. That is, in-vehicle equipment will interface with an existing automatic vehicle location system, AVL, and mobile data terminals. Controllers and signals will interact with the vehicle transit signal priority equipment, TSP. The architecture is used to describe the services and functions provided by this project. That is, APTS 09 Transit Signal Priority, and a description of that service package can be found on the architecture website. The next section of the consistency statement regards system design. It asks that the user attach documentation of all information flows for this project in this statement when submitting, or provide a web address or addresses below where the information flows can be viewed. It also asks if there are information flows listed for your project in the North Central Texas Regional ITS architecture that you do not plan to use, please explain why. Once again, going to the Local Transit Improvements project page, we can take the web address and use that as the address for the information flow descriptions, and we can also look at the complete list of information flows that are provided for that Local Transit Improvements project. It should be noted that an individual project by one stakeholder may not use all of these information flows. It is important to know which you will use and which you will not. In this case, we've listed the project page as the project page on the Regional RTS Architecture website, where all information flows can be found. And then under the Part B of information flows not used, described which information flow will be used, which won't be, and why they will not be used in this project. However, they may be used in a future project. The next section of the consistency statement asks for additional information flows. List other information flows from the North Central Texas Regional ITS architecture that are directly or indirectly relevant to this project. These may be found by exploring the ITS architecture website and looking at similar types of vehicles, similar types of centers, similar types of exchanges, similar types of projects, and seeing what other information flows may or may not be relevant, and also considering the existing flows provided in the architecture for the agencies or stakeholders involved in this project. In this case, you may also look at a context diagram. This person has chosen to look at local transit vehicles and see what types of connections they make. And if they click on the View Context Diagram here, they get a diagram of all the information flows in the existing and future for local transit vehicles. And some of these may or may not be relevant to this project. In this case, local transit signal priority, as implemented by other agencies, is a relevant flow. Local control status, as reported by signals to the Traffic Management Center, are relevant. Transit vehicle location data is relevant, and transit vehicle schedule adherence is relevant. The next section of the architecture statement requests you to briefly describe how your project has considered and planned for the flows you just listed. In this section, it describes the 4 that were listed in Part A and describes how they will be used. One is to make sure that the system deployed by the local small town transit agency is consistent with the systems deployed in neighboring towns and areas. The next is to make sure that the signal control status after a transit signal priority can be sent back to the Traffic Management Center so they can be aware of changes in phases and cycles of their traffic signals. The last is the transit vehicle location data and transit vehicle schedule adherence, and making sure that those can be used as part of the data in determining when a transit signal priority request is made. The next section is Interagency Agreements. It asks you to list the stakeholders that will participate in the operational phase of this project. Again, this may be found on the architecture website under the link for agreements. The Local Transit Improvements Operating Agreement on this page can be clicked on to be given a complete description of the Local Transit Improvements Operating Agreement and its requirements, and a list of the stakeholders. In this case, only the local traffic and local transit stakeholders are participating in the agreement. So in small town transit and small town public works are the 2 stakeholders. Will there be operating agreements among these stakeholders? The user answered yes. The next section of the architecture consistency statement is expanded information sharing. Identify information sharing opportunities you expect to be available from this project in the future. The user has completed this section by saying a future opportunity for information sharing will be sharing traffic signal status that includes signal priority requests with neighboring jurisdictions. Briefly describe how you will accommodate future information sharing opportunities into this project. The user stated, the information will be shared through future regional traffic information sharing projects as identified in the architecture. And those projects can be found on the architecture website. The next section of the architecture consistency statement is standards. These are national ITS standards as created by standards development organizations. It asks the user to list the standards identified in the regional ITS architecture being used in this project. Will the user incorporate all or some of those standards? And if the user answered the previous question, some or none, list the standards for this project that will not be incorporated into the design and procurement documents. The standards link on the ITS architecture website lists all standards that are appropriate for the North Central Texas Region ITS architecture. In this case, the ones that are relevant to this project are dedicated short-range communication 5 gigahertz, dedicated short-range communication 915 megahertz, global object definitions, NTCIP, object definitions for signal control and prioritization, and APTA TCIP, standard for transit communication interface protocols. In this case, not all of these standards are applicable. Only one of the dedicated short-range communication standards will be used instead of both, and that is listed as the reason that only some will be used in this project. The next section covers performance measurement. It asks the user to attach a performance reporting plan for this project to this consistency statement when submitting. In this case, the user didn't have a performance reporting plan developed, so they were then asked to list the performance measures that will be used to evaluate the progress and performance of this project. The following measures will be used: schedule adherence of the transit vehicles, intersection dwell times for vehicles because of transit signal priority, and transit passenger perception of transit performance. This information does not come from the ITS architecture website. The next section that the user will be required to fill out is how the project will report its performance, to whom, and how frequently will the performance be reported. Performance measures will be reported quarterly to the Federal Transit Administration, North Central Texas Council of Governments, TxDOT, and the Small Town Transit Board of Directors. Section 9 of the consistency statement asks for operations and maintenance. Again, it asks the user to attach an operations and maintenance plan for this project to the statement. In this case, the user did not have one, and instead filled out the form to explain the operation and maintenance plan. It asks to enter the estimated annual cost in dollars for this project's operation and maintenance, in this case $14,200 per year, and briefly describe the staffing and technical resources required for the operation and maintenance of your project. In this case, 1/5 of an FTE transit mechanic for maintaining the equipment on vehicles, 1/10 of 1 FTE of public works maintenance to maintain equipment at signals, and 1 maintenance laptop computer for field testing. It is important that this information be accurate and correct, and NCTCOG, the Council of Governments, will use this information and consider its reliability and accuracy. Also asked under operations and maintenance is to briefly describe how the project's needs for resources will be met. And this project described, it said, funding for ongoing maintenance will be provided through a 5311 grant from the FTA. The last section of the consistency statement requests other information and asks to attach additional documents for this project or provide the web addresses where they can be viewed below. In this case, Small Town Transit has a master plan that this project is a part of, and it has provided a link to that master plan for review by the North Central Texas Council of Governments. It also asks for any other comments that the user may want to share about the project. In this case, that was not filled out, but users are encouraged to provide any additional information that may clarify or provide more information about a project that can be used in verifying its consistency with the ITS architecture. The National ITS Architecture website is a useful reference for completing an architecture consistency statement. The architecture can be found at www.iteris.com/ITSARCH. On the National ITS Architecture website, you'll find information about the most recent National ITS Architecture with which the region's architecture will stay consistent. Of particular interest during an architecture consistency statement is service package information. In the case of our example, we used Transit Signal Priority, APTS-09. By clicking on that link at the national site, one may see the entire service package for that transit signal priority, including the information flows used in this particular project and other flows not used, but may be relevant. In addition, a user may be able to look at individual flows and identify the specific standard that applies to that flow. For example, for local signal priority request, it indicates that the following standards are relevant. These are the standards that the ITS architecture website also included, and you may choose which ones are relevant for your particular project for including in your architecture consistency statement. The website also contains more information about the standards developing organizations and each particular standard. There are 97 service packages identified in the National ITS Architecture website. These are links to websites that are relevant to the North Central Texas Regional ITS Architecture. The first is the North Central Texas Regional ITS website on the COGS website. The second is the National ITS Architecture website. The third is also on the National ITS Architecture website, and it is a page linking to free online training courses and other on-site training opportunities for ITS architecture. The last is the Federal Highway Administration's Regional Architecture Guidance, describing how to develop, use, and maintain a regional ITS architecture. For more questions or comments about the North Central Texas Regional ITS Architecture, please contact Marion Thompson or Eric Quintana at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. This is the end of Part 2 of the usage seminar.